What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life's a Garden. Today's guest is returning for her second time on the podcast. It's been almost 2 years since she last appeared on the show, which honestly is an absolute disgrace that it's taken me this long to have her back on. Considering the show is called Life's a Garden, and she is in fact the one who gave me life? Yeah, it's been far too long. That's right, she is my mother. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Shellie Fisher. You know what my favorite part about Thanksgiving with our with just like the family in general? It always ends up leading into talks of criminality and like who's in jail and who's got in trouble lately and
who's going to AA.
Yeah, it's always something.
Who's sober now.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's always something like that. So,
but it also leads to family memories.
Well, yeah.
Which that's the part I like. The criminality, because I'm always the focus of attention just about when that comes around. Not lately.
Seems like everyone else too. Like,
well, it's our family.
And if it's not people in the room, it's people we're talking about.
Yeah.
Other people that.
What's our family?
I know. That's why I say it's always so fun.
Shameless doesn't have anything on this family.
Yeah, freaking. You said that was like our. That's our show in a nutshell.
Our show would be better than that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yes, I do. And you do too.
It'd be interesting to say the least.
Right.
What was I going to say? Fuck, I don't remember. Holidays, I figured it's been almost 2 years since you've been on. Did you realize that?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Since the boys were here?
Well, no, that was because since
they were here with us for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked it up. It was 2020.
That's crazy.
It was after Christmas.
Time goes so fast.
Yeah.
It really does.
I know. And so I was like, I don't know. Part of me, there's definitely a part of me that really regrets not being able to have my dad on again.
Yeah.
When I easily could have.
Yeah.
So I was like, and then I started thinking, like, why haven't I had you back on? You also are kind of camera shy and stuff.
I am camera shy. I don't like pictures.
I know.
You guys probably have very few pictures of me.
They're out there.
A few.
But it's like, I don't know. I've had Asia and Landon on multiple times.
Yeah, I'm not much for public.
Oh, well. The boys. So, the boys.
Yeah. I miss them.
Yeah, well, they were on, a couple months ago?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
It's so weird how, time, I'm so weird with time.
I am too.
I think back, it feels like this year just went by.
It did go by really fast.
Well, and I think the older you get, years just seem to go faster. But then I think about, me and Landon went to Denver in February, and that was not that long, it was a long time ago. It feels like it was a lot longer than...
Right.
It's so weird how certain things... I don't know. Certain things feel longer than others. Like Christmas always feels like it's just, oh, here we are again.
Yeah. Because we're never ready for it, financially.
God, tell me about it this year.
This year I am.
I'm not.
This year I am. Because, I was going to buy a car.
Oh.
So I had money saved. So I don't have money saved anymore.
Well,
but Christmas to me is a stressful time, and that's usually when my criminal behavior started. So this year I saved up.
See, I did not. And I should have saved for my trip too. Or one or the other. And normally I'd start doing Christmas shopping earlier.
You start early.
Not me.
I'm done. The only two I have left are the boys. And I'm looking for PlayStation 5.
Well, don't say that. No.
They already know. They already
Spoiling Christmas presents. You know what they should get is a big old lump of coal. Or at least Darian should.
Oh, he's fine. He's just a kid. He's a teenager. You know?
Heard you've been skipping school.
Stop it.
Better stop that. What did I tell you the last time what did I tell him last time he was on the show? I said, do good in school, be proactive and get into sports, which he did, which is cool. But then now he's fucking around.
I'm going to be mad because
No.
I told you.
Well, of course I was going to find out.
Right?
Come on.
Yeah.
News travels fast.
Well, I got to say, you were really good with them while they were here. You know?
Well, yeah. I mean, why wouldn't I be?
I mean, they think a lot of you.
As they should.
Well, we had them for a lot of years.
I know. Hopefully they'll be back
They'll be
soon.
back this summer. I wanted to have them back at Christmas.
I know. Those tickets are way too expensive.
Yeah.
They're like crazy expensive.
Yeah. More people are traveling this year because no COVID.
That makes sense.
They were here right after COVID. During their trip, the year that they came out here was right when COVID started. So,
Well, the first time?
yeah.
No, it was like right after. It was like kind of... Because if it was December of 2020, it would have been like...
But COVID was still
Yeah.
a major thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so, I don't know. It was good to have them here.
It was different than the... Yeah.
But it's weird how traditions change, you know? Like, it makes me sad kind of at Christmas because I probably won't even put up a tree this year. You know, it's
Why not?
Well, because nobody comes to my house. You know, I mean, so what used to be such a cool tradition, like all of us putting up the tree, and so it's weird how everybody's life kind of changes.
Yeah. Well, I'm a creature of habit too, and I'm a very like tradition tradition holds sacred kind of guy.
I am too.
Where I like to, we still do some things the same. Like we go out and look at Christmas lights on Christmas Eve, or we try to at least, without Landon throwing up all over my car.
Or your sister.
Which one? Either one of them's either gonna show up and I'm gonna be unexpected of it, or the other one's gonna show up and it's gonna be unexpected.
Or it's going to be a surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. One will show up and it'll be expected, and the other one will show or no. Either one of them, honestly.
Right.
Showing up is unexpected anymore.
Right.
Is a surprise. But yeah.
And I like that tradition still. That
Yeah,
we go
well,
look at lights.
We still
and-
try and hold a few things, but it's tough when there's moving parts and
People's lives change.
yeah.
Kids grow up.
I don't like change. I'm not a
I
fan.
hate change. I hate it. I'm a terrible person for change.
But
I know you used to freak out when I'd change the living room around.
I mean, look at my house. It's been the same for 5 years. As long as I've lived here, nothing's really... I mean, little things, but...
I can remember one time you loved being downstairs in your room and on that couch watching TV.
Oh, at the Pueblo house?
Yeah, it was hard to even get you upstairs for anything. I mean, you've always been your own person, you know? And I remember I sold that couch downstairs. And you loved that couch. And when they went to take that couch out, they had to carry you upstairs on the couch because you would not leave that couch.
Why would you do that to me?
Because it was an old couch.
And we got a new one?
We got a new couch, yeah.
God.
It used to throw your whole feng shui off when I would rearrange the living room.
It does. And you'd have to do it when I wasn't there.
Yeah?
And I'd come home and be like, what the fuck is this?
Or I'd be painting a chair.
That's so weird. Did you sell those jackets?
Yeah, I sold all of them.
Did you?
Yeah,
Right on.
yeah.
Mom's making well, tell them what you're
It's
doing.
denim jackets, and I just cut out pieces of it and put lace in there. Yeah, I sold
Different
them
styles and stuff.
Yeah.
You sold
Different
all of them,
lace.
though. That's
I
cool.
sold all of them for $50 a piece. Made $400.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty reasonable
Yeah.
too. Like $50.
Yeah.
At
It's really reasonable because I've seen some on Etsy and some of those for like 180. You know, I wish I could show one. They're really super nice.
Did you take pictures?
I did.
I can, if you send them to me, I'll put them in so people can see it.
Get some orders.
Yeah. And then what was the other thing you did? The jackets and what else? Was it just the jackets?
No, I did wreaths.
Oh, that's right. Did you sell those?
No.
Why not? Well, I'm not. I don't mean why not, but I wonder why those didn't sell.
Well, because the way we had stuff set up, they were kind of not on the main walkway. They were kind of hidden.
What are you going to do with those?
Plus, when I got there, I don't know, they're in my garage. One's on my door, but the rest aren't. Because when I got there, I used different material to do them this year, and when I got there, one of them, all the balls fell off and bounced all over. So, I mean, it wasn't.
Okay, that just reminds me, because, there's something, I don't know if this is like just, I guess I can't explain what this is to me, if it's OCD, or if it's just like, I don't know, instant panic or something like that, but like, you saying that reminded me of when we went, it was my birthday, one of my birthdays, we had it at the Billings Hotel, which we had a lot of birthdays at the Billings Hotel, and I literally stayed up all night making Power Ranger masks.
Oh, I remember that.
Out of paper.
Yeah.
Like, because I had this harebrained idea in my head that all of me and my friends, never even clued them in on any of it. I was just going to surprise them that day. That we were going to play Power Rangers for my birthday with these paper masks that I made. And once we got to the hotel and hey, guess what? Here's what we're doing. Tried to put Brad's mask on and it ripped. And I was just like, fuck it, we're not doing this. Like immediately I was just like, so like this project I put together fell apart and I'm like, no, done. Like I don't even care about it anymore.
You used to work hours on things.
Yeah, I don't. I guess I kind of do still. Like,
used to draw Digimon for hours.
I drew all 101 Pokemon from the original, from memory.
I mean, you just enjoyed your own company. You really did. You know, you could occupy yourself for hours. You know, you didn't need anybody else around.
Well, still don't.
You do too.
Well, I guess I will say this. That is something that's a little bit different about me, is I'm definitely more of a social creature. Mm-hmm. Although I like solidarity sometimes, but there's times I crave social. That's why I go out to the bars all the time. Right. It's not because I like to drink or I can watch football games here. It's just because I like hanging out with people, even if it's just strangers.
It's nice having social interaction.
So what are you going to do with those wreaths then?
It'll just be in my garage.
Well, you could. I mean, if anybody wants to buy a wreath, how much are you going to sell this for?
$25.
Okay. If anybody wants to buy a homemade wreath, how many do you have?
I just have one right now.
Oh, just the one?
Yeah.
Well, what happened to the other ones?
It fell apart.
Oh, you just had the two?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you had more than that.
I had 3, and then I put one on my door. So.
Oh well.
But I made you guys all wreaths one year.
I still have mine. I'm gonna put it up.
And then I took Landon's to the wrong house.
I remember that.
And it ended up, we tried to go find it, because I was supposed to go up to his house, and I did, and he wasn't home, I thought, which he had been waiting for me, I guess. But I went to the wrong house, and he wasn't there, so I just left these cookies and this wreath on this porch.
But somebody posted it on Facebook, right?
Somebody posted it on Facebook, and that's how he found his wreath.
That's kind of cool, though.
I know. It was kind of a cool story. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, I still have mine. I'm literally waiting for the power just to completely go out, because I just put up all my lights, and they're more than I had last year, so
a lot more than you had last year.
Waiting for overload.
Did you plug them into different outlets, though?
Of course.
You'll be fine.
I know. I mean,
your power bill's gonna go up.
Yeah, but whatever.
Right? It's Christmas.
They literally. So if nothing goes, the way I figured it, because before the fuse would break or before anything else, a strand of lights would go out.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, it would overpower one of the strands,
You
is
think
how it
so?
would go. Yeah. Because it's happened before.
Oh.
And so, as long as they're still up going right now, nothing's going to burn out.
No, I think they'll be fine.
So, and I already went and checked and seen how warm they were, just to make sure.
They don't get warm. That's not going to be your problem. They'll be fine. They don't take that much energy.
Yeah, I know. But pretty happy with how it turned out.
I think it turned out really super nice. I really like that little soldier. That brings back a lot of memories. So do the candy canes. Because we used to go all out in our yard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
That was my idea, too.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I take credit for that.
But the last year when you weren't there, I did it all by myself.
True.
It sucked.
I wish you still had some of those lights. I would have used them for here.
No, but things happen.
Whatever. Yeah. What do you do?
Yeah.
I have to go buy them all now.
I wish we still had a lot of things that we used to have. Like a house.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. But
things happen.
Things change and
Yep.
whatnot. So.
Yep.
So, I guess, well, we've kind of already touched on it, but I did want to ask you because I totally failed to ask you last time, and I guess as long as you're comfortable talking about it, but it's just I think it would be an interesting topic to just discuss is your history with the law. I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to, but
it's fine. It's fine.
I think time's passed enough that
It's been public knowledge for a long time.
fair enough. But I guess let me just start with this, because I don't honestly think I actually know exactly why, like what it was that got you put away the last time.
Let's start with the beginning.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Because I've been in the system for 45 years. I've been either in prison, pre-release, or on probation or parole. That's your whole life.
More than that.
Yeah.
45, that's more than
45 years.
all of ours.
Right? Yeah. And I still have till 2037 before I'm discharged. The last time, well, we'll work up to that. My criminal history. It started in 1994, a year after you were born. I was falsely arrested.
For?
A black woman.
How does that work?
Well, it's strange. A friend of mine was detailing my car. And while he was detailing my car, he did a gas drive-off.
Oh.
I had a good job at this time. Hadn't been involved in any criminal activity, so to speak. I probably wasn't exactly doing everything law-abiding citizens do. But I wasn't breaking the law, exactly. Oops. So he did a gas drive-off in my car. Came, parked the car, and jumped in my shower. Yeah, so I didn't know. About 20 minutes later, a cop came to my door. I was holding you. Ashley was 5. And he told me that someone had done a gas drive-off in my car. Which, he asked me if I knew who it was. I told him I didn't know who it was. And he said, well, if you'll just pay the $20, we'll call it good. So I paid him the $20. He said, but first I have to run your name. So we went back to the car and he ran my name. And he came back up to the door and he said, you're under arrest. And I said, for what? And he said, we have a warrant for your arrest.
For somebody else named Michelle Fisher.
As it turned out. And I told him, I said, this is impossible that I have a warrant. I just barely moved back here to Billings. And I have not been arrested. Well, he said, same name, same date of birth.
Well, that's crazy.
He said, you're under arrest. So I kept telling him, run my social security number. Run my social security number. No. So we called Department of Family Services to come get you and Ashley. And I asked him, I said, could I please call my parents to come get them instead of DFS? So he did let me call my parents, and my parents came and got you. They were flabbergasted that I was being arrested. Got put in the cop car, got taken down to jail, booked, fingerprinted, put in jail clothes, everything. First time I'd ever been to jail in my life. And I kept telling them, this isn't me, which I imagine a lot of people do when they go down there.
Sure.
And I said, I need to see the warrant. I want to see the warrant. So the lady said, fine. So I was standing up at the counter as the warrant rolled off their fax machine, and I saw it coming off, and I saw an afro, then I saw a black face, and they pulled the warrant off, and it was for Michelle Fisher. She was 5 feet 4 inches tall, 180 pounds, and she was definitely not white. So they still made me bond out of jail.
What?
Yeah, they still made me bond out of jail. And I called a friend of mine to post my bond because I had no money on me. So he came down, posted my bond, and we went directly over to a lawyer, Brad Andorfer. And of course, he took the case right away because it was a bogus slam dunk. Yeah, it was a slam dunk. Of course, it went on the front page of the paper, or maybe not quite the front page, but it was definitely in the Billings Gazette.
As a false arrest or what?
Yes, as a Billings woman falsely arrested. And I demanded a public apology from the chief of police and the officer that arrested me. And we put in for a monetary
suit.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, a quite large one. Well, the chief of police came over to my house to give me a public apology. I mean, to give me a one-on-one apology.
Sure.
Which he did. And he told me it would be to my advantage if I dropped the lawsuit and we would settle out of court. Well, I didn't think that was what I wanted. So that year, I was arrested probably 180 times.
That year?
Yeah. Sometimes 2 times a day, sometimes 3 times
because of the lawsuit?
Because of the lawsuit. I had a good job at Herberger's.
How's that work?
To defamate my character.
Yeah, but don't they have to have some cause or what?
They would come up with all sorts of causes. Like I'd be parked in the yellow or, it was just to defamate my character. It was anything and everything that they could come up with to arrest me. And all they would do is take me down, book and print me, and then let me go.
Or just to exhaust you?
Yeah, just to basically, when I would go into court, what it would do would, they would show I had all these arrests, and it would look really bad. Well, I got arrested so many times. I had a good job at Herberger's.
Here, I think you keep hitting that thing. It's making a noise.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So, I had a good job at Herberger's. I was in management. I was modeling for Herberger's. But because I was arrested so many times, they had to let me go.
Well, 100 and some times.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It was a lot. And my dad had a scanner at the time.
Sounds like such a waste of resources.
But when you sue the city, especially the police department, they don't take kindly to that. And it was definitely their fault.
Right.
I mean, it was a slam dunk.
Yeah.
But, so when I got fired from Herberger's, I just decided that was it, And so I did start breaking the law. Extensively breaking the law.
Okay, so like?
Well, at that point in time, I hooked up with Landon and Asia's dad. And he was notorious.
All of our dads.
Yeah.
Kind of were.
He was probably one of the biggest outlaws in Billings at the time.
Okay.
So he was selling drugs, and I decided that how I got involved with this, I have no idea, but we started forging checks and stealing credit cards, and soon I was probably one of the most wanted women in Billings, Montana. They said that I led a 3-state forgery ring. Montana, Wyoming, and California and Colorado.
But that wasn't true? Or was it?
It was partially true.
Okay.
So the false arrest happened in 94. You were probably a year old. And from 94, 95, 96, this criminal activity ensued. We had a mail deliverer that we paid to just bring credit cards and checks to the house. We would check mailboxes. It was just crazy, to the point of $2.5 million in cash alone that we took out of those 3 states.
Jesus.
And that doesn't even include the jewelry, furniture, cars. That was over and above the $2 million in cash. It was crazy. Every time they finally arrested us in, I believe 95 was when they finally arrested us. 95 or 96.
Because that was right before Asia was born.
Yeah.
Asia and China.
Yeah.
So, real quick, a lot of this kind of makes a little sense, seeing as how we had a lot of stuff as kids. And yeah. So how do you like, I'm trying to figure out how would you go about buying so many things and like it not coming up on IRS stuff? Or like, I guess you wouldn't have to, huh? Because it's under somebody else's name.
Yeah. I can remember one time, and this was one of the biggest licks that I ever did. And I did it by myself. And anything that I did by myself, I never picked up a charge for. Anything that I did with anybody else, I got charged for.
People leaving paper trails.
No, people told. And so I remember this one time.
Snitches.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I learned everything there was about this woman. Everything. And I had her ID. And I went down to First Interstate Bank. And I took out a loan for $10,000 in her name. And when I got the check and I was riding down the elevator, my heart was pounding so hard that I could hear it in my ears.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the adrenaline was incredible. And when I came down, because I think we were on like the 5th floor, and I rode the elevator down because they told me that I could cash the check right downstairs or put it in a checking account, which we knew that wasn't going to happen. So when I got down to the bottom floor, there were 2 security guards standing there. And I thought, this is it. This is it. But I just told myself, keep your cool. Just keep your cool. Just remember that who you are and just walk and go cash your check. So I did. And I cashed a check and I walked out there with $10,000 cash.
Jesus.
Yeah. That was one of the biggest licks that I ever got. One of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the story with where Jake was falling out of the car or something like that?
Well, Jake had got a purse somewhere out of Sinclair gas station. He got a purse off the top of a car. How he got it, I don't know. But he came to the house, and we lived down on McDougal. And he came to the house, and he said, Auntie, I got a purse, So it was kind of late at night, so we decided, well, we better go take advantage of this purse. So we went to Laurel, because the gas station in Laurel was the only one open, the Sinclair gas station. So we went in, and we were buying a bunch of stuff. Ashley was with us, this other kid was with us, and then Jake was driving. And so when we went in, I wrote the check and went to hand it to the lady. Well, the check was Lisa Pelican.
Oh, yeah, I remember how. Okay, sorry.
So it was a Pelican gas station. We didn't even think about it. So when I went to hand the check over, the lady started acting really sketchy about it. And there was this transvestite working there. And she kept telling this transvestite, whispering to him and stuff. So we knew something wasn't right. So I grabbed the check from her. Oh, she said to me first, she goes, "You're not Lisa Pelican." I said, "Well, yes, I am." She said, "No, you're not. Lisa Pelican's my boss." Lisa Pelican, Sinclair gas station, owned by Pelican, whatever. We were done. But we went to run out to his car. Well, the doors didn't open. So everybody had to jump through the windows. So everyone was jumping through the windows. I had just bought Jake a pair of Oakley sunglasses. They fell out of the car. And so I'm like, "Go, go, go." And he's like, Auntie, my Oakleys, my Oakleys." I said, "Fuck your Oakleys. Let's get out of here." So this one kid's legs were hanging out of the back window of the car. And he went screeching out of there and hit the lady with this kid's legs that were hanging out of the back of the car. Well, we got away. But that was just one of many, many incidents that.
That was just one that I remembered.
Yeah.
I had heard. But anyway, so back to where were we on that? Oh, 96.
So they were watching our house. I mean, seriously, it turned into a major, major thing. I mean, like I say, 2.5 million is a lot of money.
Yeah.
There was
in 96, yeah.
There were 3 of us that were involved. I mean, we were driving Cadillacs. I had jewelry on every finger. You know, we had lots of cash, a lot of cash. We were doing a lot of drugs.
So, do you launder the money? Do you buy things and sell them? Like, how do you get the money? Is it the same thing that you said where you went to the bank?
Yeah, we just go in. We printed payroll checks. We made our own payroll checks. Different people's checks. We would make IDs to match the checks. Going to casinos, cash checks, payroll checks. We would go Walmart, anywhere that would cash a payroll check. You know, we would do that. Go in and buy tons of merchandise and sometimes sell it, you know, do whatever. But most of it was, we had a nice house. I drove a Cadillac. Yeah.
Okay, so they're watching.
They're watching. Setting up surveillance everywhere. We were
full on Sopranos.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. We knew that they were watching, but we were just too arrogant to, you know, to play down to it. Well, one time we were thinking about just leaving town because we knew that they were pretty close to getting us. And I rented a car with a credit card from somebody else. Well, they raided our house. And we lived on 3rd Street, right across from the park in a little log cabin type house. You were just a tiny baby. And they raided our house. I got arrested. Rocky got arrested. They held Ashley at gunpoint to her head.
Jesus, how old was she? Like
she
8?
Was, yeah, at the most 8. Her and her babysitter.
They
held them both at gunpoint. Rock was in the back bedroom. From what he said, he thinks that they intended to actually shoot him because he was known to always. All of us back then carried guns. I mean, I carried a gun. He carried a gun. Everybody that we were traveling with carried a gun. And I was still out driving the stolen car. I didn't know all this was going on. And when I showed up, then I got arrested. He got arrested. DFS came and got Ashley. We went to jail. You know, that was the first time I was arrested. I bonded out and proceeded. Both of us bonded out. Rocky and I bonded out. Just proceeded to still carry on like nothing happened. And I think I got arrested in 96 was the big bang. In 96, I moved in with my mom and dad because we lost our house, of course. And so I moved in with my mom and dad, and we still carried on like we hadn't even been arrested. And in 96, I went in, I got arrested, and that was it. There was no getting out there.
How long was that one?
That I was in jail. Well, when I went to jail, I found out that I was pregnant. So, But every time that I would go to court, it would be front page news. Every time. It would be front page news. Woman leads three state forgery ring. Woman, just every time that I would go. The cameras would be in the court. It would be on the 8 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news. It would be headlines. Only me.
Not any others?
None of the others.
Why?
I don't know.
Just made for better headlines, I guess?
Yeah. And I don't want to say I was a mastermind behind it, but but yeah.
Okay.
Let's just quote that. So, no, that wasn't the time that I went in pregnant. So I got out because my dad was dying. And I remember I was sitting in a little computer class that we could go to in there. And I was sitting in there, and they came and told me to come up front, that the chaplain was up there. And so I went up front, and they put me on the phone. And at that point, I learned that my dad was in the hospital and that he wasn't probably going to make it. And so I went back to, of course, my cell, and very hopeless, not knowing what to do. So I tried to commit suicide.
Jesus.
And I took a razor from one of the shavers that we got and slit my wrist because I thought that I could get up to the hospital that way and at least maybe be able to see my dad. But it didn't work. I just got taken up front and put in a cell up front so they could watch me. Probably about 5 days after I heard that, my lawyer at the time, which was a piece of shit, really, but he went and got me released to my mom's custody so that I could at least go up and say my goodbyes to my dad and attend the funeral. And so I went up, and I remember when I first got released, I had to, this was before they totally agreed to let me out, but my lawyer took me up to the hospital to see my dad, and I was handcuffed and still in my jail clothes when I got to say my goodbye to my dad. And when I went in the room, I didn't even recognize my dad. I almost wished I wouldn't have gone up there to see him, because that's the last memory I have of him in my brain.
What did he have?
Pneumonia.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And I think, honest to God, I think he was just overwhelmed by everything that I was doing, And it got to the point where he couldn't even watch the news or read the paper because, like I say, for a year straight, it was headlines and it was news.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. I mean, it was a pretty big deal. So then they did release me to come out to his funeral, and I went, after his funeral, I just went buck wild. All this time you have to remember that there was drugs involved, major drugs involved. And I was a major addict, so I just went buck wild after my dad died. And so I got arrested in 95 and went to jail. The dates are vague to me because there was so much going on for so long that it's hard for me to really remember when exactly that I went to jail. But right before Asia was born, I got taken back in. Mm-hmm. And this time...
That was a long stint.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't getting out.
And if I remember right, you got... Well, wait, now. I'm trying to remember here. Because That must not have been that long.
No, it wasn't, because that time when I went in, they still had good time. Where if whatever your sentence was, it got cut in half.
Okay.
So I went in, and I was pregnant at the time. 93, you were born.
Yes.
So this had to be 96, which would be about right.
Asia's.
Yeah. So I went into jail and discovered while I was in jail that I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that I would go up to have my checkup at the hospital or whatever, a sheriff would have to take me. And I'd be shackled and belly chained and in my prison deal. And it was so intense, because when I go up there, we'd be sitting in the waiting room, and all these other couples would be up there with their husband, and they'd be so excited. And I'd go up there with the sheriff, and I'd be shackled and belly chained, and it was humiliating. But I remember at one point I went back for an ultrasound, and the nurse that was doing the ultrasound said, just a minute, I have to go get another tech. And I thought, something's wrong. And I was like behind a curtain, but the sheriff was right out here sitting. He was a young guy. And so she came back in, and they started going over the ultrasound, and this lady said, you're not just having one baby, you're having twins. And I was just like stunned. And I remember the sheriff that was sitting out there said, oh my God, we're having twins? Because he had been the one that took me up there all the time.
Yeah.
And he was so excited. He was so excited for me. I wasn't. I wasn't in the situation to be excited, especially
for two more. Yeah.
Especially about being incarcerated and what am I going to do?
Well, don't know what the future holds and
Right.
whatnot. Like, what's going to happen to these two
Right.
kids? Yeah. Because, okay, so from my perspective, from what I remember, obviously, like, young age, it's hard to remember things like this, but honestly, like, my first memories are at Grandma Ellen's. Like, staying at Grandma Ellen's, Asia and China. I think my oldest memory that I can, like, fully pull back from is, like, pushing Asia or China in one of those little, like, scooter things, like one of those little...
Well, my mom took you.
Okay.
My mom had you.
Okay.
And Grandma Ellen had the girls.
Okay. Well, either way, I remember being at Grandma Ellen's.
Right. Yeah.
And, like,
'Cause
being in that trailer on Phillips.
You were real young when my mom had you.
Okay.
But I think you were a lot of what kept her going. You know, I mean, you slept with her. You would only eat like them frickin' frozen dinners with like the little dinosaur.
I remember that. It's hard. It's so weird when you try and like channel old memories. Like, I'm trying to, I don't even think I could remember.
You remember getting new carpet in the house.
I do. I remember that because I remember Grandma Mary taking us to McDonald's. But I'm pretty sure Asia was there too.
No, Asia wasn't born.
So it was just me?
Mm-hmm. It was just you.
Okay, so I do have faint memories like that.
When Asia was born, when they finally, because I was pregnant, I almost did my full pregnancy in county jail. They finally took me over to prison, and that's where I had the girls while I was in prison. Had to go up in labor to the hospital, shackled, and go in and, go through the whole process. Grandma Mary and Grandma Ellen were up there, but I couldn't see them. They couldn't see me. And
where's Rocky in all this?
Rock's locked up.
Okay.
Rocky's locked up. Your dad, I don't know.
Somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. Doing his own thing.
I do have faint memories as a child being around him too.
Of your dad?
Yeah.
He's breezed in and out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have pictures and stuff with him and stuff.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean, there were times when I was doing my criminal activity that you would go with him. That he would keep you for a month or so.
It's so bizarre. Think like now knowing how like all over the place I was at that age, like between both grandmas, my dad, you when you were out and stuff like that, and it's just so weird to like. I remember being at my dad's house in Wyoming at one point. I remember being all the different houses with grandma, and it's like it doesn't feel like that was a thing. I for one, I think it's a part of like when you're a kid, you don't really have concept of
Right.
things like that,
Concept of time or concept of
responsibility
Right.
or like gravity of situations, things like that. But also, it's like I'm sure I'm positive I mentally blocked out a lot of my childhood
oh, I'm sure.
for whatever reasons.
I'm sure. I mean, you were in several raids.
I don't remember any of that.
I'm sure. I'm sure you didn't, because that's terrifying.
It's so weird what the mind will do.
Yeah, it's terrifying. You know, and I mean, this is how to honestly tell you how the mind works is my trauma started when I was 4 years old. I remember, do you hear gunshots?
Somebody doing fireworks?
I don't know.
This happened last time I recorded. There was like, it wasn't like that, but it was like somebody was plowing the road, and I was like, I was in the middle of recording, and I was like, what the hell is that? But I did hear that.
Did you?
I hope it was fireworks. God damn. Watch, we're gonna find out.
Right.
Something was just happening right down the street. I told you earlier there was cops right outside
Right. So see,
It's been getting weird over here.
it's been getting weird everywhere in this town.
There's like graffiti just right over on the side here. The
This-
other morning, I was walking to work and the casino, the alarm was going off on the casino.
Well, some guy got ran over just right down here on Broadwater
think
and
I heard
killed.
I think I heard about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's freaking getting crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway,
But anyway,
hopefully everything's cool out
yeah.
there.
little PTSD kicking in.
Yeah, right? You were saying your trauma at 4.
Yeah, at 4. Of course, you know I'm adopted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was told that I was adopted right when I was old enough to know. Well, I remember I was 4 years old, and I was an odd-looking little child. You know, I mean, I had big freckles, I had red hair, and it was cut off really short. But at that point, you don't know
Mm-hmm.
that how you look, or you don't,
Think
you know,
about it. It's
no.
not something that's
No,
in the
it's
forefront
just,
of your
yeah.
mind.
And I remember my dad had bought me this trike, this red trike. And I was so excited because I'd see the neighborhood kids riding their trikes and everybody. So I was so excited to go out and show these kids my trike. And when I pushed it out there was 4 of them standing there, and they were a little bit older than me. And so I pushed my trike out, and I was so excited to show it to them. And I got on it, and I didn't know how to ride it. And I remember these kids that were making fun of me, and this one kid said to me, he goes, "You're so weird and ugly, it's no wonder that your parents gave you away."
That's fucked up.
And at that point, I really didn't understand what he's saying, but I understand it enough to know that it really hurt me.
Yeah.
And I pushed my trike up to the garage, and I went out, and I never did go back out again or ride my trike.
It's so crazy what, like, one thing, like, somebody can say one thing or one thing can happen to you, whether it was, like, intentional or not, and it will shape the rest of your life.
And that
Especially in, the younger years.
was the one thing that started my dislike for people and my dislike for communicating.
Mm.
I quit talking.
Yeah.
I would talk to my parents, But my whole existency was my dolls. That's who I talked to. I didn't go out and play anymore.
That's so crazy. Like, I mean, it's not because I've heard multiple stories like this, but it's like, it's just crazy what little things can trigger somebody to.
It was it was honest to God, the start of my whole life of problems.
But also at the same time, we're all made up mentally different. You know, we all have different triggers. We all have different, like, things that, some people might hear that and, like, totally take just because their brain works differently, and they might take it totally different, you know?
And I don't know if it was because my parents told me I was adopted and that I didn't understand what that meant at that time, but I knew that I came from somebody else.
Yeah.
That somebody else didn't want me.
Well, and I don't know when would be a better time to tell somebody that, because it doesn't really matter at some point or the other, whether you're older or younger, you're still going to feel like that rejection.
Yeah.
There's still that, like, underlying sense of rejection that at one point you weren't wanted.
Right. And that carried through for the rest of my life.
Right. But I wonder if it would be better to find out later in life, because then you at least have the capacity to, like, understand it a little more.
I feel like then it would lead to distrust.
But also, yeah, you're right. But also, I don't feel like you get that the sense of rejection and the fact that, like,
because you're not old enough to understand why somebody would give you away.
Right. And then you're constantly fighting with that at a young age where you're not really going to be capable of understanding. All you know is that rejection. I don't know. I wonder if there is any scientific or, like, psychological.
Well, I do know that in most instances, people that are addicts have been adopted.
Interesting.
And I only know that because of my progression through everything. But
I wonder if addiction is
hereditary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They say it is, like alcoholism.
I truly believe it is. I don't know because I don't know my real mom. I know my adoptive parents never drank, never did drugs. I was never around that. But that moment right there changed my whole life. At 4 years old, my whole life changed.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we moved to a house from Custer. After that happened, my parents just didn't understand what the fuck, what was going on. I wouldn't talk to people. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to talk to anybody. My parents and my dolls. My dolls became my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I developed imaginary people. They were worried about me, so we moved to a different house. And I remember, of course, then I had to start school, which was terrifying to me, because then I had to be around kids, and I didn't talk. I remember first grade, because I didn't talk, my teacher was so angry with me that she literally put me over her knee and spanked me, which just added to the trauma.
Yeah.
It was just more trauma. So at 8 years old, I started drinking. I remember my mom was making cookies, and she was baking with vanilla extract, and it smelled good. I asked her, can I taste that? And she let me taste it. And this is how I know that alcohol is hereditary. Because the minute I tasted that, I knew that it was something that either I needed or I wanted. And vanilla extract has 8% alcohol.
So, why do you think that I haven't really had that then? Like, I've never had that, like, just need for alcohol. Yes, I get fucked up from time to time, but it's purely out of social. Okay, so we had an audio issue there, which actually worked out because I stopped to go to the bathroom and noticed that the audio had stopped working. But we were just in the middle of talking about addiction and things like that, and I was asking how why it didn't really work on me, or like why I haven't really developed much
Alcoholism.
well, yeah, things like that. But like obviously, and then I had mentioned how I do have some addictive personalities on certain aspects of things, and like you said, a lot of us do have.
Everybody.
Yeah.
I don't care if you call yourself normal or not. You have an addiction somewhere.
Yeah.
But by the time I was 10, I was a full-blown alcoholic. I mean, to the point where I would wake up in my own vomit. But it gave me a sense of social belonging when I was drinking. When I went to school, I could interact with the other kids. I could talk. You know, it would cut my inhibitions, you know. But that was at 8. By the time I was 10, it was out of control. But nobody knew. My parents didn't know. They were taking me to doctors to try and find out what was wrong with me.
Well, they say alcohol is the social lubricant.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. But when you're 10,
you
don't understand that.
Well,
all you know is you want to belong. You want to be part of something. But you don't. At 8, 9, 10, you don't understand what's going on in yourself. Why you can't. I mean, I couldn't relate to what happened to me at 4 to why I was drinking at 8.
Right. Yeah, you couldn't make that connection.
No.
So do you think because of the distrust for people and like the just those
fear of rejection
or all that stuff, all the trauma and stuff made it easier to rip people or
to enter into my criminal activity.
Yeah, and to like affect other people in that way, like doing the damage to, obviously taking $10,000 out of people's account, like that's gonna affect somebody else.
Oh, definitely.
But it's that disconnect that makes that easier.
I think so, and I think that that the drugs and the alcohol numbs you to that.
Sure. Okay. So it's a combination of everything.
Yeah.
So how do you get back that empathy for people?
Well, okay, so like being a full-blown alcoholic at 10 years old and nobody understanding it, I had to go through electric shock therapy.
Jesus.
At 10, I remember them hooking me up to machines and putting electric bolts through my body to try and understand what my problem was. It wasn't until they gave me a blood test. I remember the doctors asking me, "What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you?"
As if you were going to be able to tell them.
Yeah, I was like going to say I'm drinking vanilla extract to the point where I'm puking. I'm drinking cough medicine to the point where I'm blacking out. You know, that I'm not going to tell anybody that. I didn't tell my parents. I wouldn't tell anybody else, you know?
Yeah.
And there was always that fear that my parents that I had were going to give me away too. Because I was so fucking broken at that age that that great fear that now I'm going to get giveaway again.
Right.
Because I thought that's why my real mom gave me away, because I was broke and not fixable. And so then it further increased to the fact that I was really broke by that time. But the electric shock therapy scrambled my brain to the point where at one point I was totally not functional.
Yeah, that's freaking way outdated.
Yeah. This is of course, you gotta remember, this is 80. I was born in 58, so that was years ago.
Yeah, they didn't
understand. And they didn't know that it was alcohol that was making me be the way I was.
Right. But
Which
still, it's like electric shock therapy.
To a 10-year-old.
Like, it's so, like, you gotta wonder about stuff like that, too. Like, what kind of practices, medical and psychological practices were done that fucked people up also.
Yeah. And how do we know that didn't affect me later on?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
Which it did.
Think about it, too. Like, it's still going on. Like, the opioid crisis, that's completely by the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical industry created the opioid
Big Farm contributes to, I would say, 98% of the addictions in this country.
I believe it.
So, the way they discovered that I was an alcoholic was they did a blood test. At some point, they couldn't figure out anything else to do, so they did a blood test. Well, my alcohol level came back
through the roof.
Yeah.
Or anything at that age would be alarming.
At that point, they put me on this drug called Antabuse, which, if you drink at all, even mouthwash, it causes you to vomit excruciatingly. So they put me on Antabuse, but I figured out at 10 a way to get around the Antabuse. If I drank milk before I took it, I didn't throw up as much. I still threw up, but I didn't throw up as much. So I still continued to drink, to the point where I was stealing from the stores vanilla extract because, of course, my mom at that point
stopped buying it.
Yeah. And there was another girl that was my same age that was also drinking with me. And we would go to Albertsons at the time, Buttrey's it was called, and we would steal probably 10, 13, 20 bottles of vanilla extract.
Jesus.
And so...
Do you get PTSD when you smell vanilla extract today?
I get PTSD over a lot of things. Over a lot of things, just like that backfire of that car or whatever it was, that gives me PTSD. I've lived most of my life in fear.
Do you remember when we threw those firecrackers next to the window at Ashley's bedroom?
No.
You don't remember that?
No.
At the trailer park or at McDougal? We took a Black Cats and threw them next to the window. And then we heard a big crash because they all dove to the ground.
Well, that would stand to reason.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
we're living in a trap house.
Pretty sure it was you and me. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was somebody else. I will say, just going back to memories and stuff like that, and like how kids don't really like understand situations and like the gravity of situations and like what's going on around them and things like that. I specifically have this memory sitting at the house of McDougal, sitting in the living room, watching Dragon Ball Z, because I had VHSs of Dragon Ball Z, whatever, playing with toys, watching the show, and I looked behind, and like looked around me, and there's at least 3 or 4 people just passed out. In my head, everyone's just taking a nap. But no, everybody's all strung out on dope. And like, and it just doesn't even click to me. Like, there's all these people here just like probably zonked out on heroin or whatever. I don't know what everyone was doing, but like,
probably a combination.
Yeah, or pilled out or whatever. Everyone's like, or even alcohol, whatever it was. Everyone's like zonked out on dope, and I'm sitting here watching Dragon Ball Z, like whatever, not a care in the world, like do.
Actually, I'm surprised that you were even down on McDougal because you hated that place.
Yeah, well, I still don't have too many fond memories of that place.
Well, it wasn't a fun place to be.
No. But, okay, so anyway, let's go back to... So, as I'm trying to retrack, I don't remember you going in the first time, the 96. You were
little.
Yeah. I remember, I think my next memories with you are, I want to say, I must have been in first grade or even kindergarten. I had, like, it was school. Like, I remember Central Heights, still living at Pueblo. You were there. And you must have been there all the way up until, let's see, when would that have been? Like 3rd grade?
I got out. Okay, I got out shortly after the girls were born. Okay, because when I was in prison, of course, we all know when I had to leave the hospital. Asia was in intensive care, and I hadn't even got a chance to touch her. I got a chance to hold Asia or China, but I didn't even get a chance to touch Asia. When I left the hospital, I had to leave not knowing where either one of those girls were going to go. I didn't even know if Asia was going to live at that point. Had to go back to prison, and at that point, your grandma, Ellen, got the girls.
Now, how does that work? Considering she really had no ties to either of them when it comes to, like, birthright.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
they were
for everybody who's unaware, this is my dad's mom.
We have a really confusing family.
Yeah, not there. So no real blood relation to them.
Mm-mm. My mom had you.
Okay.
And so...
Which is even more bizarre because...
and because my mom was too old to take... Which...
Fair enough. To take on 3 people. Yeah.
Your grandma... Originally, your grandma was... The state denied your grandma the ability to take the girls because of her age also. And they were set to go to another couple... and I would say their name, but that's not important. But somebody discovered that there was abuse, child abuse in that family.
Oh, boy.
And so right at the end, DFS stepped in and allowed your grandma to take the girls, which was a blessing. Total divine intervention at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, of course, 3 months later, when I was in prison, I was working in industries, and a complete stranger came up to me, and told me that China had died.
How did they know?
Because I imagine Grandma Ellen had called the prison to tell them.
So that's how you found out?
Yeah, that's how I found out my baby had died. By a complete stranger. And then I got taken back to my cell.
Jesus.
And had to process that alone.
Yeah. So then...
Then, a few months after that, they did, of course, there again, they did an article on me in the paper about giving birth in prison. Because back then...
You should have saved all these articles.
You can look them up.
I guess that's true, huh?
You can
look up old archived stuff, huh?
You can, and you'll find a lot of them. So, one thing I have to back up and tell you, and this is another thing that when I went to court to be sentenced, my dad had just passed away. Mm-hmm. My dad had probably been gone maybe a month, and I went in to be sentenced. My mom was in the courtroom, and when I got up to be sentenced, the prosecutor said, not only should Michelle Fisher be charged with the crimes of blah, 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 but she should all be charged with homicide over the death of her father that died of a broken heart.
That's fucked up. That is fucked up.
It is fucked up.
Like, as if you're not already, like, feeling...
guilt, remorse, as it is.
Yeah, like, just sadness over the loss of your dad. Anyway, it's like, you did that!
Yeah. And I already felt guilt because of the fact that I put them through hell.
Yeah, and so, oh God, that's so fucked up.
So, and then my mom being out in the audience or in the...
Yeah,
and not understanding what they were saying, thought that I was going to be charged with homicide.
Oh my God.
But I ended up getting 31 and a half years on my very first time.
So, but obviously that's not what you did.
I did 15.
No.
Yeah. Between prison and probation, pre-release and probation. Okay.
But you must have got released fairly quick then.
I did after the girls were born, and that happened, and China died. They did another story in the paper about how she had passed, and they got me out of prison with the quickness. Because there was a lot of backlash from the fact that I was incarcerated when the babies were born, number one. And at that time, that was pretty much unheard of. And then the death, and then the public
outcry.
Yeah. And so they got me out of prison probably 2 months after she died.
Okay.
And
which kind of makes, okay, now that's starting
to kind of gel together with you.
Right. So, well, and then I remember, because Landon was born, like...
No, not yet.
No. I'm just saying, like, so, I remember being at the Pueblo house, and...
Do you remember coming down to visit me at the pre-release at all?
Not that time. Because then we go to... Then
I got out, and I did get to parole to Grandma Mary's house.
Yes. Okay. So when did we come back in the picture?
At that point.
Okay. So, and then that was all the way up until, like I want to say 3rd grade for me. So that would have been...
Even a little bit later than that. C93.
Because that would have been like 2003.
I went back in.
2003, 2002, somewhere in there.
I don't... in 2002. Well, Landon was born...
In 2000. Year 2000.
Yeah. And the house on Pueblo Grandma Mary died.
Mm-hmm.
And that sent me into another freaking relapse.
So that's the point when it... Because I remember that. I remember all that.
And at that point, then, I went back into prison.
And that was like 2003?
2.
Or 2. So
2
wait.
or 3, yeah.
Was Grandma Mary there before or after? Was she around when Landon was born?
No.
Okay. So, but that was a good 2 years then.
Yeah.
Between Grandma dying and you going back.
Yeah.
And I do remember, like, I remember Rocky being around.
Yeah.
I remember, like, getting new vans and things like that.
At that point, Rock was selling a lot of drugs, and, so we had quite a bit of money then.
This is kind of a little bit off, it's not completely off subject, but it's just kind of a detour. This was a thought I had that maybe you can play off of and just, like, verify for me. Collecting things seems like kind of an addictive trait, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, because Rocky collected
cars,
the Hot Wheel cars.
Mm-hmm.
You collected the Roosters and stuff like that. So I don't know why I thought about that just a few days ago, but, like, people who, like, collect a lot of things, I wonder if that's, like, an addictive trait.
Sure.
Because there is kind of an addiction to the collection itself.
Yeah.
So I wonder if people who are heavy in collecting things are prone to alcoholism or drug addiction or things like that.
Could be.
It's just something that I thought. I wish I could remember, like, why I thought that, or, like, what it was that because I saw something or heard something that made me think of that. But I can't remember the source. Anyway, so then you went back. Well, it's just the same stuff. A lot of the same stuff this time around. Mm-hmm. Now, this time was the longer stint, because I want to say you were in for like 8 years at that point, right? Because 2002, and when you got out, I want to say it was
6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I did
2007
6 years. Yeah, I went to pre-release.
That sounds about right, because I would have been in middle school.
Yeah.
Because, yeah. Okay. And, yeah, you went to pre-release for a short time.
For over a year, because I went in as inmate worker for 6 months, and then I did 6 months in pre-release.
Okay.
So I was in there a year.
Because I remember when you came, I remember the day you got out, and that when you showed up at Grandma's house on Adams Street. I remember that.
Yeah, you guys didn't even know I was getting out.
Right.
You know.
And then I remember, um, was there had to have been an in-between. Because you got out and then the McDougal house and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an in-between.
I discharged my sentence. I got violated, and I went back in and discharged my sentence. And I think that time I was in for 2 years.
Okay.
Altogether, I mean, I've been in the system for 45 years. Between prison, pre-release, and probation and parole. I've been doing time for that long.
Jeez.
It's a long time.
It is.
And I still got a ways to go. But I mean, there's been so many. I mean, I guess it's only fair for you to understand some of the things that led up to me be the way I am.
Well, and that's fair. I mean, I don't think anybody is just born a criminal or is born an
addict.
Maybe you are, though, because like we said, there is scientific evidence to back up that addiction is hereditary, but it definitely falls into play. Like, there is nurture involved in that too. Like, the setting that you're in,
the people you hang around.
But then again, like you were saying, like, you drank the vanilla extract and it just like clicked. Mm-hmm. So who knows? Maybe there was nothing that was going to stop that from happening.
Right.
But the combination of things, like the adoption thing, the kids bullying you, you add all those things together.
And it's crazy because as I went through school, I always had a really low self-esteem because of that initial, you're ugly and you're weird. That stuck with me. It's still, I've carried that stigma for all my life.
Yeah.
And it led to, before I met Ashley's dad, I was working at this place, cleaning for this place. And there was this lady named Mary Frances. And at that point, my drug progression had grown from alcohol to, well, let's back up. So when I was 14, I started dating this kid. And supposedly that was my first love. But I can honestly tell you that I didn't know what love was. I loved my parents, but I had that great fear of
rejection.
Yeah.
I was just talking about rejection, like just the other day. Or not the other day, but a couple episodes ago.
I mean, it's so huge.
It is.
It's so huge.
And it makes me curious. Sorry, I'm not meaning to like step all over your stuff, but I wonder where my fear of rejection comes from.
Well, how do you think? Your mom went to prison. Your dad went to prison. You were here. You were there. You know, at one point you were homeless. You know, I mean, a place which the Pueblo house was our security. You loved that house. And then all of a sudden one day it's gone. And,
right.
And all your stuff is still there. You know, you're removed, you get to take a few things, but you don't know what happened. You didn't understand what happened. All you knew was that the place that you loved and was security to you was all of a sudden gone.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there anymore. You know, so
yeah, I guess I if I really had dug into it, I probably could have figured that out myself. But I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
You know, I mean, anything that you knew not once but several times was taken away from you.
Right.
You know, and yeah.
Anyway, so sorry, back to where you were talking about. You have 14.
Well, like I said, at that point, my longing to belong, longing to be normal, was still driving me, and the shock treatments, the abuse, all that stuff. It worked for a brief period of time, but then I started into my teenage years, and marijuana, all that still mood altering, changing. Also, at that time, they diagnosed me with a mental illness. For lack of anything better,
of course, why not? Just add that. I mean, Landon kind of went through all this shit too.
Yeah.
Remember, like,
Yeah.
they were just like throwing the book at him
Yeah.
with like Ritalin and what's the other one?
Well, he was on every drug. I mean,
Yeah.
he was on so many drugs that he was basically a zombie for a long
Well,
period.
and you know what sucks about all that? So during his childhood, ADHD was the most overdiagnosed thing in children.
I honest to God think that's what started my addiction to methamphetamine.
Was the
Was the Ritalin.
Oh, you were on Ritalin too. Yeah, no, Ritalin is meth.
Yeah.
It's like one chemical away from being meth.
Yeah. And when I was 10, they started the Ritalin.
Adderall, that was the other one.
But Ritalin was the first. That was the first deal. And you're right. That was any kid that misbehaved or acted up, they were ADHD.
Yeah, it was the absolute most overdiagnosed thing in children, and it was just another reason to start feeding kids pills.
Yeah. And then came manic depression and bipolar and all this shit. And then more pills and more pills and more pills. I mean, honestly, and this is the God honest truth. I don't, and still to this day, I'm just now finding out who I am.
Yeah.
Because I've been drugged for so long that my emotions have been so
chemically dependent.
That there's some emotions that to this day that I'm feeling that I don't understand.
That's reasonable when you think about all that. I mean, whether it was prescription drugs or street drugs, yeah, it's like it's all dissociative. It's all like you can't really like. I mean, even when I drink and when I like get drunk, I feel differently than when I'm sitting normally. And to an extent, I can understand why people like to stay in that state of mind, because I mean, personally, I feel a little bit more loose. I feel more social. I feel more
funny.
I feel more apt to do things that I normally wouldn't do, as far as not like adrenaline seeking, but like like just spur of the moment.
Well,
like
your inhibitions are all just so lowered. I mean,
and for me, being such a guarded person and like not really always willing to take a chance, there is like a part of me that wants that wishes I was more like that. So the wanting to be like that, drinking makes you more, like you said, what how did you put it?
Your inhibitions.
Yeah, it lowers your inhibitions. So I get that, but also I guess I just know that that's not right. And I personally prefer my own, just being in like my own state of mind, like my sober state of mind. I prefer that over, but I can understand why it's why people would seek that.
Well, there comes a point in time, like I know with myself, that I have done so many things in my life that have been horrible. I've seen so many things in my life that have been horrible. That it's a way to escape all that. It's a way to not think about that, to just to avoid that memory.
Yeah.
Because honest to God, I have seen and done some very horrible things in my life.
Well, we're definitely going to have to do a part 2.
Okay.
Because we're getting toward the end here.
Okay.
And I feel like there's a lot more I want to ask and a lot more we need to talk about. But we'll leave the audience in a suspense.
Okay.
And we can always...
Stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll always come back to and we'll do it sooner than 2 years from now. But let's not leave on let's leave on a high note.
Okay.
As I like to do. Not to say,
One thing I do have to say.
Okay.
And this is very positive, is during my relationship was strained for a lot of years. I'm sure you didn't trust me,
Well, I mean, that was evident when you got out and I didn't want to stay with you.
Right.
Literally.
Right. But you did.
Eventually.
You did. But I think that the turning point in our relationship was when I had to move in here. A big turning point in our relationship is...
That recent?
I do.
Okay. Why is that? Because
we became closer. We got to spend time together. I don't know. But I feel like, up to that point, I feel like there was always, you had a skepticism about me,
Fair.
I do.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true, but that's how I felt. That that between you and I, there was a strain.
I have skepticism about everybody.
But I feel like, you know what I mean? And then I feel like that was a turning point. And now I have to honestly say that I feel like we're close.
Yeah. I would agree.
Which to me is, extraordinary.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I don't know if that was the point, but maybe to you, I guess I couldn't. I think it was when you left. No, I'm just kidding.
Shut up. Shut up.
I think that's when I was like, all right.
God, thank God.
So let's close the show. Positive, motivational message to the guests. We can relate it to what it was we were talking about, or just whatever you want it to be. Something from you that you want to relay to the audience that would be a positive or motivational message.
I would just say that
there's a lot to take away from all this.
I think the main thing is don't live in the past. Don't let your past dictate your future. You can't change the past. You can only move forward. And holding on to all that negative or whatever that has happened in the past doesn't have to dictate where you're going tomorrow.
You can learn from it still.
You have to learn from it. And if you take away from everything, be it positive or negative, that you've gone through, it makes you who you are. It gives you strength. It gives you motivation. It gives you a desire to continue on.
But the worst thing you can do is dwell on it.
Definitely.
Because that's not positive.
Definitely.
Then you're just feeding.
A lot of people go through life constantly feeling sorry for themselves and using their past
as an excuse.
Yes.
Yeah. And we've seen that.
We still see it.
Oh, yeah. For sure. All right. Well, I like that. That's a good one to go out on.
Okay.
And we'll definitely have to do a part 2. There's just too much to unpack.
It's a long life.
It is. And it's just more of a reason to do it all again.
Okay.
So, thanks for coming on.
Yep. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And we got holiday season coming up.
Yep.
So, we'll definitely be doing all that stuff. It'll be fun. And thank you all for listening. Like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. But most importantly, don't forget, life's a garden. Dig it.
You've got